All right, well, we'll officially go ahead and get started. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us. I see that we have prospective students, we have parents, and many others joining us. So again, wherever you are in the world, thank you for taking time out of your day. It's truly humbling and we appreciate it for sure. We have a really great presentation this evening. I'm really excited to be joined with my colleagues in continuing education, which is really going to be a big focus of this. And so before we get started with that presentation, I'll go ahead and begin with introductions. I'll start. My name is Mike Cameron. My pronouns are he, him. I have the privilege of serving as RISD's Director of Admission. And in my office, we see undergrad and graduate admission. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Christina.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Christina Byrne. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Associate Director for the Student Experience in Continuing Education, and I help to manage our pre-college program. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sean McCarthy. I work as a program manager with Continuing Education. I'm overjoyed to see the number of students and parents and family who are in this chat today. We do a lot of work behind the computer, and much of our time with students is spent over the summer. So it's really great to start these interactions with you now.
Great, thank you so much. And yeah, so this evening, before we get started, I want to make a note that this presentation will be recorded and we will send it out to all of those who registered, whether you attended or not. And I also saw a question about whether or not we can see your video. This is a webinar format, so unfortunately we are not able to see you, but we do have a Q&A feature in the panel, which in the different features of Zoom. So we would kindly ask that you use the Q&A function to ask questions. And once we conclude the presentations, we'll spend the remainder of our time answering your questions. So with that, I'm going to start sharing my screen. And all right, so we will begin the presentation with an overview of RISD. And the reality is I could spend an entire day, several days with you talking about RISD, but what I really tried to do here is condense the presentation and pull out what I think are some of the most unique aspects of RISD and really what you'll experience as a student. But we'll start with the history of RISD. So we'll go back to 1877, which is the year in which RISD was founded. And it was founded by a group of women called the Rhode Island Women's Centennial Commission. In 1876, 1 year before the founding, this group of women had a surplus of funds and they were trying to figure out what they could do with that money. And it was really interesting. At that time, they were kind of deciding between a fountain or establishing a college. They really believed in the power of art and design to influence change. And so you could pretty much guess which one. Ultimately, under the leadership of Helen Metcalf, RISD was founded in 1877. And I think it's important to note that that's 4 decades before women even earned the right to vote in the United States. And so women were among the very first students, and we're really proud of that history. The Metcalf family is still involved with RISD today. And that influence is really felt in many different ways. The influence of art and design, certainly in our students, certainly in our faculty, and absolutely in our alumni. We have an alumni base of 31,000 alumni residing in over 100 countries worldwide. They're Guggenheim Fellows, they're Pulitzer Prize winners. They're also, they make up 11 MacArthur Genius Award recipients. And for those of you who are not familiar with the MacArthur Genius Award, it is the highest national honor for creative thought here in the US. Among those 11 recipients is Tavares Strachan, who is a RISD alum. And Tavares does some really fascinating work. He actually he's a multimedia artist. He's working with photography, sculpture, 3D, incorporating history, science, and he often reframes history where marginalized figures are often excluded. And so what you see here is his sort of take on the 1909 discovery of the North Pole, which is historically credited to Robert Peary, who was a white discover, but this is actually a commentary including Matthew Hansen, who is a Black man that was along with that journey. And so you can sort of see that coming through in his work. Here's another example of Tavares's work here. This is a sculpture that's on a barge, and it's really commenting on citizenship, culture, and as that barge travels down the Mississippi River, really giving people a sense of questioning culture, citizenship. Do I belong here? How do I feel? And how has that dialogue shifted around me? They're also the founders of Airbnb. They include Sam Bhatt. Sam actually did one of our admission posters recently. He does some really interesting work. He blends pixelated imagery of symbolism from the past and present. His work is regularly featured in the New Yorker, the New York Times, the Atlantic, and many more. RISD today is certainly made up of 2,500 students, and this is another certainly amazing way that we see the influence of art and design coming to life. You can see here that 75% of the student body at RISD are undergraduate students in pursuit of their BFA or Bachelor of Architecture degrees, and 500 of the enrolled students are graduate students in pursuit of an MFA. These students come from all over the world. They represent 69 countries worldwide. 39% of the student body identify as students of color, 36% of the student body are international, and 15% are first generation to college, meaning they're the first in their family to go on to achieve a four-year college degree. And so how do you go from being a student to making that impact? It really begins with how you learn and how that's different in the context of an art and design education. And for students at RISD, that begins with experimental and foundation studies. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But what I would say is that this year of study, this full first year of undergraduate study, is really designed to radically shift your perception of process. Think differently about making, what making means to you, who you are as an artist and designer. And we do that through 3 different studios that you'll take progressively in your first semester and again in your second semester. And those are drawing, 2D. So this is actually work that was done in a design 2D design studio. Interestingly, students were challenged to create a machine that could make work for them. And then they had to document the process by video. And this here is Benjamin's solution to that. So this machine was his creation, but the machine is creating the work. And so students are challenged to begin conversations about authorship and really see how that comes together in critique. And the final of the 3 studios is, so there's, we call it spatial dynamics, which is really 3D. Here's actually an example of an assignment that was given to students in spatial dynamics. And this is Patrick's solution, where students were asked to create a structure in which they could sit for the duration of critique using cardboard, but using no adhesives or bonding agents of any kind. And so Patrick created this structure in which he could sit. But what's even more exciting about this is that these are module pieces that can be taken together, condensed, and built into so many different shapes, which is really exciting. I think talking about the course and the assignments of Paulo Gaetano Adi also really speak to experimental and foundation studies and what you can expect to experience in this year. She actually created a series of assignments. They were called Se Habla Español. And the first day of class, students showed up and they were given a syllabus all in Spanish and 50 individual assignments completely in Spanish, and challenged to create 50 different assignments based on those prompts. They were both process-based, they were experiential-based, including volunteering for a social cause or getting involved in a social cause, documenting light. It was really an entire series of assignments that were less about the finished product and more about self-discovery, learning who you are as an artist and designer. I think this really speaks exactly to the purpose of experimental and foundation studies. And here you could see samples of some of the work here. Now, at the end of your first year at RISD, you will be asked to declare a major. So I think this is important to note that when you apply to RISD, you will indicate your area of academic interest, but ultimately you'll declare a major at the end of your first year. So you're not bound to the major you put on your application, and students are guaranteed their first choice major. You can see our list of 16 undergraduate programs here. The only exception is architecture, and that is a 5-year Bachelor of Architecture program. The rest are Bachelor of Fine Art degrees, where you will achieve that degree in 4 years. And so for those of you that aren't familiar about the difference, whether it's a Bachelor of Architecture or a Bachelor of Fine Art degree, these are very specialized degrees where roughly 2/3 of your curriculum will come in the form of studio-based learning. Now, 2/3 will come in studio. The other third at RISD will come in the form of liberal arts. And the liberal arts are incredibly important. And so for the parents that are here, that are wondering about how this is integrated into the program, what opportunities will my child have to explore the humanities, the social sciences, the physical sciences, life sciences, whatever that might be, the answer is there's an array of opportunities, and we offer 400 liberal arts electives each year. They come in the area of 3 different divisions within liberal arts. So history and theory of art and design, history, philosophy, and the social sciences, and literary arts and studies. And so, yes, we do offer courses that expand beyond into science and the STEM areas. And we'll talk more about how students can pursue many of their liberal arts courses at Brown University, which is a neighbor of ours. This is one other example that I want to just talk about briefly, is that we also offer interdisciplinary concentrations. We don't have minors at RISD. You can double major, but you can also add a concentration to your program of study. And so, for example, computation, technology, and culture, there might be 3 to 4 courses that you'll take that encompass this concentration. But what it allows you to do is bring a focus to your work. And so these are just a sampling, but we offer many more interdisciplinary concentrations, and I would encourage you to take a look at those if you're interested in how you can maybe focus your undergraduate program or tailor it more towards your secondary or even primary interests. This is a great example. Lee Pivnik is a sort of self-declared nature nerd. Lee was a sculpture major, declared a concentration in nature, culture, and sustainability studies. And he did a lot of the environmental humanities research. And you could see that he started to bring this into his work as a sculpture student. But upon graduation, Lee actually founded the Institute of Queer Ecology. Many of the scientists and artists and designers that you see here are RISD alums. They've received funding from the Knight Foundation. They've been involved with many different galleries, and they've been doing some really, really interesting work that really aims to imagine a world where sort of science and creatures of all kinds coexist harmoniously together. Now, I already mentioned Brown University. I want to just give another nod to Brown because it really is, it is such an amazing resource for students at RISD. So Brown is literally a neighbor. You can get to their campus very quickly walking there. And students at RISD have the opportunity to cross-register. So you can go there to take many of your liberal arts courses and then have those seamlessly transfer back to your undergraduate degree progression. There is no prerequisite to do that. It just has to be available to you and ultimately come over. You'll work with an academic advisor to do that. And about 400 students at RISD will cross-register and take classes at Brown each year. And similarly, Brown students can take courses at RISD, and they absolutely do. You also have access to all of the libraries at Brown University, the athletic facilities, and shared clubs and organizations, as well as different lectures. This is actually a visual of a joint lecture series. That's Tarana Burke, who was the leader of the Me Too movement, and Brown and RISD did a different sort of lecture series there. It was really a great opportunity for everyone. And I also just finally want to make a note that we do have a dual degree program with Brown University. So this goes beyond cross-registration. You do not need to apply for cross-registration. There are no prerequisites. The dual degree program must be applied to at the time of first year admission. And students in this program will complete an undergraduate degree from Brown and from RISD over the course of 5 years. Now, it is a 5-year program. The only major at RISD that you cannot do is architecture, because that is also a 5-year program, and it's not possible to complete all of that within 5 years. But the student for whom this program is not only ideal, but for whom this program was designed is really someone who knows that they want to merge art and some other discipline into one academic experience. And that's really important. I think there's a this misconception or this idea that this program exists to give students the best of both worlds. Oh, I can still study art, and then I can take, courses in computer science or biomedical engineering or literary arts, whatever it might be. That is not the type of student that this program is designed for. It's really for someone that wants to, again, merge academic disciplines into one experience. It culminates in a capstone project where you're presenting on this. And it does have its own website, which I'll put a link in later, but it's, I think it's risd.brown.edu. We'll take you to that site where you can learn more and see some of those capstone presentations as well. I only have a few more slides here. I'll be done in just a few moments, but I also want to just call attention to faculty and some of the spaces in which you'll work before we turn it over to my colleagues in continuing education. At RISD, you will study in a 9-to-1 student to faculty ratio. So the classroom sizes are small, studios are intentionally kept very small, and we certainly have limited studio space by major. So, we want to make sure that everyone has their own space in which to work. And the faculty are really doing so much, and they're just really remarkable and are such an amazing. I really think it's what distinguishes RISD among so many other art colleges, as well as colleges and university. So here is someone you may work with. This is Jennifer Packer. She's associate professor of painting, recent recipient of the Rome Prize, which is a very prestigious award, and also just had a solo show at the Whitney called The Eye Is Not Satisfied with Seeing. Got a lot of critical praise for that work. Anastasia Reina actually served on the admission committee and reviewed applications for quite some time. Anastasia's research is really looking at emerging technologies and sort of understanding how those sort of push the boundaries of what it means to be human. And so Anastasia is also really involved with our partnership with Hyundai, which is the Korean automotive company. And so what's really exciting is that you see here some speculative work that Anastasia was working on with students on the future of mobility as part of that collaboration and research. And also here, so not featured here is Brooks Hagen, who is our interim dean of fine arts. And Brooks has some really interesting work. And he also oversees this advanced textiles research group that is really pushing the boundaries of weaving and integrating different technologies. So you could see here, these students who are a part of this research group were using a loom and CAD design to actually weave an athletic shoe, which is pretty amazing. Featured in there was actually Emily Holtzman, who is a BFA alum in textiles. She was also a part of this research group, found a way to connect with Brown University's biomedical engineering program, and actually after graduation founded a company called EmboNet, which is actually this small knit device that is now supporting aortic bypass surgery. And so when we think about STEM becoming STEAM, this integration of art, this is a prime example of how her expertise in knitting and textiles was able to merge with science to produce something that is now saving lives, which is pretty amazing. And I'll conclude here just by giving a quick note of where you learn at RISD. This to me represents the difference of being at an art program within a university or in an independent college of art where that's really the primary focus. We have 44 different buildings that make up RISD. Each major has its own building or its own floor, and students are given their own studio spaces. It's all about having that space to work. And so these are just a sampling of some of the studio spaces that you might find around campus, depending on your major. We have some really amazing resources like this Jacquard loom, which is certainly part of the textiles program. And I'm sorry, apparel design, textiles, it can be integrated in many of those programs. We also have the Nature Lab, which is another amazing resources, and in my opinion, one of the coolest places in Providence, that serves as a really great space to learn about nature and as a visual resource and library, but also, sustainability is so important, and certainly furthered through that, or it's actually one of the only collegiate spaces to be funded by the National Science Foundation. I'm sorry, funded by the National Science Foundation within an art and design college. Spatial Audio Lab. We also have the museum, the RISD Museum, which is just an incredible resource, has over 100,000 works spanning antiquity to contemporary pieces. It's a great resource. It has a student exhibition space. And we also have our own library, the Fleet Library, which is a beautiful space, converted bank with tens of thousands of volumes of books that are all dedicated to art, design, architecture, and photography. I did say that was the end. I do just have one last piece here. I promise I'll turn this over to my colleagues in just a moment, but I do just want to quickly talk about the future, because we are very focused on that, both as a student and beyond. So we have different fellowships and different opportunities for you to continue research, continue making. We like the Maharam Fellowship, which is really looking at social justice, sustainability. This here is Eli Kaufman, who is a recipient of this fellowship and took that to Utah and Salt Lake City, to the Wasatch Community Gardens, was creating murals there for women who experience homelessness, and is really putting them back into work and getting them back on their feet. Also, Kim Dupont-Medinier is a recipient of a Fulbright recipient. RISD actually has just about 100 Fulbright recipients in its alumni base, which is really amazing. She took her research to Mongolia, where she was looking at traditional ger housing and seeing how she could bring that to sort of green architecture techniques. And here's a sampling of some of the recent internships and jobs that students have gone on to very, very recently. And I'll just close by saying that, create to question, question to create. The world, we do believe, needs more creative thinkers. And I hope that this piece here is just giving you a sampling of how RISD is really preparing students to become impactful in the world through art and design. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleagues in continuing education. Whew, that was a lot.
Thanks, Mike.
My pleasure.
Hi, everyone. Christina Byrne again from RISD Continuing Education. I, along with Sean, are here to chat with you about the RISD Pre-Collegiate programs that we offer. We will talk both about our on-campus program that we run during the summer, and also our year-round advanced online program that is a great fit for a lot of students. And I will let Sean take it away from here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina. Just a reminder, I'm Sean McCarthy. I work as a program manager. Most of my work in the year is working with our faculty and preparing for these courses, whether it be in the summer or year round. We have options for students from 13 to 18 years old. I am closely connected with a number of our programs that we have, and I'm excited to share more about APO and pre-college today. First, I'll be diving into Advanced Program Online, and then we'll take a closer look at our Summer Immersive Pre-College. So we can switch slides. So APO is a fantastic opportunity for you if you are a rising sophomore, junior, or senior, and you're interested in joining a college-level intensive. APO is similarly inspired by the learning that happens at RISD and at pre-college. The program is completely online with weekly live class meetings. And much like pre-college, as an APO student, you have the option of taking a featured topic within a specific area of study, from drawing in mixed media and illustration to sculpture and animation. Completing APO will help you prepare the skills to build up your portfolio work. Importantly, APO is thematic in that the content you engage with helps you reframe the way you look at the world. You'll be challenged to consider how your work can impact the world around you. When you join APO, you have the option to take 1 or 2 essential fundamentals courses in drawing and design. And once you've successfully completed one of those courses, you'll be eligible to join a concentration. This concentration pairs up your featured topic with a liberal arts course that reinforces your creative decisions through research-based learning. Students who join and commit to APO find that they're able to develop in an at-home studio practice as well. So you might be interested in joining our online program this summer for 4 or 8 weeks. And for more information about this program, the concentrations, and how to register, head to precollege.risd.edu. On the next slide. RISD Pre-College is one of the longest running, largest dedicated art and design pre-college programs. With nearly 10,000 alumni, we are excited to continue offering this opportunity to you all. During the rest of this presentation, I'll be sharing a brief introduction of the program, a look at who our students are, some of the academics and our expectations, and then how we celebrate your achievements to close out the program. After that, I'll hand it over to Christina, who's going to talk about the student experience and student life on campus. We want to share this information with you because RISD Pre-College isn't just an academic experience, it's immersive in all sense of the word. Next slide. The program is 5 weeks long, starting on June 24th and ending on July 29th. It's an opportunity for you to learn new skills beyond the ones that you're bringing to the program. It's a time for you to build your portfolio of work that represents your creative drive, decision-making, and responses through thoughtful inquiry. Of course, there's also time to experience what college life is like, particularly college life at RISD. We welcome over 500 students each summer from across the country and around the world. Pre-college is a great place if you want to make connections with students that share your passion for art and design. Next. High school students who are rising juniors or seniors are eligible to attend pre-college. Pre-college is open to students of all skill levels, so whether you've never taken an art class or you've regularly attended art programs, all are welcome. Our instructors are prepared to work with students at any point in their development as an artist, designer, and student. Of course, one thing that all of our students have in common is that they are seriously interested in art and design, meaning you're considering attending an art and design college like RISD. Next. Pre-college academics are rooted in an introduction to the RISD Foundation and first-year experience. This is an immersion into art and design with a heavy workload that helps you expand your ways of thinking. In other words, pre-college sort of taps into the RISD student experience. All of your instructors will be professional artists, practicing designers, and art educators who are able to provide insight on what sort of trajectory you might be on if you follow a certain route in art and design. Pre-college is definitely a great time to start talking more seriously about potential career paths. Your instructors are one of several resources available to talk to you about these decisions. When we say that we emphasize process over product, we mean that you'll be immersed in the experience of art making. We believe that the most valuable learning happens through making. So while you might have an idea of your end goal, a vision for your work, that's not our primary focus. Instead, we'll ask that you tune into the process, allow yourself to engage deeply with your work and its inspiration, and share that experience with your peers. It's possible that the result is something unexpected beyond what you thought you were capable of. Critique is celebrated across nearly all of our programs here at RISD. We value the learning experience that is earned when talking about work, and your peers will be as eager to share as they will be to hear what you have to say about their work. And although it might feel daunting at first, embracing a critique culture will ground your work in a thoughtful and organized process. Of course, it's important that I share that our pre-collegiate programs involve an intense workload. artists and designers are challenged to produce at elevated levels within all industries and professional pursuits. That said, it is a luxury to be able to work day in and day out on things that artists and designers love, and that's a wonderful experience. Next slide. Switching gears some, I want to just introduce some more of the logistical elements of the program. You'll be spending around 4.5 days per week in class. When you apply to pre-college, you'll have an option to select from one of the available majors, and you'll notice that these majors don't pair up exactly with RISD's majors. They're a little bit more fine-tuned to meet up with some of the more popular subjects for students. Once you select a major, you'll join what is not unlike a cohort of students. Your group will attend major concentration classes, as well as a drawing foundations course and design foundations course. You're traveling through pre-college together, experiencing the same things in these 3 courses. And RISD follows this model to help students build a bond in a community faster, especially during such a short period of time, only 5 weeks. We emphasize this focus on community because we recognize that there's a vulnerability associated with critique and art making, and we want you to feel comfortable sharing out with your peers. Your last course is Critical Studies in Art, which could be like a mix of another major mixed with another group of students. This is a liberal arts class that involves students in research, art history, and presentations of work. So briefly, your courses typically run from around 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Majors courses will meet twice a week. Your foundations will each meet once. And then your critical studies class will run one day for around 2 hours. That's kind of the week in a nutshell. Next slide. All right, so although your pre-college major may seem sort of like the driving factor for your decision to attend, I want you to know that the major is really not the most important part of this experience. Your decision to choose one major or another does not need to be the deciding factor regarding your career. Many institutions, including RISD, as you've heard, require that students wait to declare their major until they have some college experience. So during this program, you have the chance to make a decision about what works and what doesn't work for you. And regardless of if the major is the right fit for you, you can now boast some variety in your portfolio. You may be a student who right now has a portfolio just bursting at the seams with drawing work. So perhaps it's a good idea for you to choose a major that emphasizes 3-dimensional work instead. Majors do fill up rather quickly, so I would say just please do apply early. Of course, that we hope that if your first choice is not available, that you'll consider trying something new. All right, next. I want to touch on some of the work that you might create in our pre-college majors. 2D majors are typically the ones that students are more apt to choose. They're a bit more comfortable leading into the ones that emphasize drawing and painting. So there's painting and illustration, graphic design, printmaking, graphic novel, digital photography. And much of the work that you'll be doing in these majors, across all work that you'll do at pre-college, will involve sort of observation of life. This is a key component to the learning that happens at RISD. You won't be drawing from photos or videos, and our hope is that you can see how your results have more depth in the process. Next. We also offer several majors that push the boundaries of 2D, whether it be through ceramics, fashion, architecture, sculpture, furniture, jewelry, interior design, and glass. Next. And then you might even work in animation, art and science, industrial design, and textiles. You might even notice that we push beyond the 3rd dimension to introduce elements of play in majors like game design. Or you may see that some students create work that invites their audience to interact with their pieces on display, like work in art and activism, during which students dig deeper to learn how their work can directly impact their community. I also want to just take a moment to share that none of our majors really focus heavily on using software or computer tools. RISD saves that for later in their learning. Pre-college is a time to build a portfolio that shows evidence of proficiency when experimenting with your hands and analog or physical materials. Next. So as I mentioned previously, you'll be taking 2 foundations classes outside of your major, the first of which is your drawing foundations course. The assignments that you'll complete will vary by instructor, though all students will be learning the fundamentals of drawing, focusing on line, composition, scale, and perspective through a variety of methods. You might create a traditional observational landscape scene or find yourself creating work that you then cut and manipulate to provoke meaning. Next. You may even find yourself working in color, again, completing assignments that are focused on observation. Something that I personally find, is totally interesting, truly interesting in all our practice is how sort of the interpretation and personal meaning play into your approach and end result. This is certainly most evident when two students create from the same subject and create something that is totally unique from one another. Next. In your design foundations course, you'll focus on the fundamentals of successful design, which involves shape, form, and balance. And much like the drawing course, the work that you create can be fraught with emotion and meaning, created based on experience and observation, or inspired by organic and inorganic forms. You may have 3D assignments like what you see here that follow geometric shape too. Next. Next slide. You will also talk about and create work that emphasize color and pattern. You'll work at a variety of scales, and you might work on collage or found object. Some of your work may even have an illustrative approach, like what you see up here on this slide. All this work follows design practices and concepts that are critical to creating successful pieces. Next. All right, so taking some time to just cover the Critical Studies in Art course. This is the liberal arts course that you'll take. You are going to find it wholly valuable to research artists and designers when creating work that's not only sort of inspiration, but it's a second layer of your foundation, what leads you to make creative decisions. Particularly, this course is going to help you see how your work fits into the expanded world of art. Next. All right, so all of this hard work that we've been talking about today is going to culminate into this last week, which is a truly exciting time and celebration for students. This week involves final critique and closing exhibitions. During final critique, your instructors spend as much time with you to advise on next steps, what might be your best work, and how you might continue your academic career. We collect student work to display for both majors and foundations exhibitions. We have an awesome fashion show and animation screening to close out the program. And of course, parents and family are invited to join in on the celebration too. Next. All right, I'm sure you've noticed there is a lot going on as a pre-college student, and we want you to know that we are ready to support you every step of the way. Of course, we do ask that if you plan to attend pre-college, you are willing to fully commit to the program in the same way that we'll be committed to your success. So with that said, to speak more about the support that you'll receive in some of the more exciting parts of RISD pre-college, I'd like to hand it back over to Christina.
Thanks, everyone. So I am here to talk about what life is like at RISD pre-college outside of the classroom. So students will have the opportunity to live and work like a RISD degree program student. You will be living in the same residence halls that undergraduate students live in, eating in the dining hall, using the same academic and studio spaces. You get to participate in a college orientation. It's a really exciting day where everyone is arriving on campus and there's exciting events happening. Even as a commuter, you have the opportunity to immerse yourself in all of the exciting things that are happening, any activities, weekend events. You really get to immerse yourself into campus life. There's students from all over the world, so you may get a roommate from from another country or from another state, and you get to come together and share your your passion for art and design. There is the dining hall, which is very good. It's one of the highest ranked dining halls around, excellent food. You get to have access to the mailroom, so any packages that, you know, friends and families may be sending you, and you also will have access to the RISD Fitness Center during your time during the 5 weeks. The residence halls are made up of single, double, and triple rooms. You have access to all the common study areas, the recreational lounges, and kitchens. So students who want to make a home cooked meal or, you know, get creative and cook with, you know, friends have the opportunity to do that. Each community, so each floor will have a resident advisor, and those are RISD students who stay on and work during the summer. As a resident advisor, they are there to help with all types of questions you may have, feelings of homesickness, helping with laundry. They are your in-house adult, if you will, to assist students, you know, when they're living and working in the res halls. We also offer a manual laundry service that you can sign up for at the beginning of the summer, and then you just don't ever have to think about you know, washing your clothes, your sheets, your towels. They will do that all for you. They pick it up on I believe it's a Sunday night, and it's back to you by Thursday. So it's a great service for students who don't want to spend their time doing laundry. We also offer pre-college students on-campus activities. So that can be in the form of our Beyond the Studio talks, which is an opportunity to, you know, gather folks from campus, whether it's having a RISD student panel or doing a portfolio workshop. We try to get students engaged, take a little break from all the studio work that's happening, clear your mind. Sometimes there's self-care pop-ups or, you know, ice cream pops in the lounge, you know, things to get students having a balance in their day. We also do weekend trips local around New England. Rhode Island is the ocean state. There are beautiful beaches within 30 minutes of Providence. So we try to get students out to the coast and have some relaxing time at the beach. There's different community events happening. There's a really great downtown art scene where you can do a walking tour of different art installations and murals. And then the end of the program, we commence with an artist ball, which is a RISD tradition. If we had to compare it, it's similar to a big dance or a prom. We typically will put a theme there and encourage students to get creative with their costumes or, you know, whatever they're wearing that day. We get a DJ, there's a photo booth. It was a lot of fun this past summer. We're looking forward to doing that again. And then that artist ball kind of goes into the final week exhibitions where students have the opportunity to showcase their work. Families, friends can come into town, view those different galleries. It's a nice ending to the program, big celebration. One of the biggest, you know, concerns for our office is the wellness and safety of all students. So we do have a fully functioning health services team here during the summer, and that also includes our counseling and psychological services center. So students who are either already engaged in some type of counseling or talk therapy have the opportunity to continue that here. They are available to our students Monday through Friday, and then we do have an on-call policy for students after hours. For academic support, we connect students with our disability support services. So if you are looking to establish an accommodation for your time at pre-college, it's really important that you connect with our DSS office in advance. It's really easy to connect with them. They'll do an intake with you via Zoom. And that way you just have the accommodations needed to really succeed here at pre-college. Another great feature of the pre-college program is our RISD rides. So this is a van shuttle service that will take you around the campus and within a established radius of campus. And that is available to students in the evening time. So from 5 p.m. to curfew. If you're working in your studio, you know, till late, maybe till 9 p.m. and you don't want to carry all your things and there's a group of you and you just want to get a ride back to your dormitory, then RISD rides, you can get them right on your phone. You'll be introduced to the My RISD app, and you'll have access to that. And that is a 7 days per week. So every evening that is available to students to ensure that you get back to your residence hall safely. And then, of course, we have our public safety team. They are the defenders of the arts, and they are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to support students, to make sure everyone is safe. There is a very strict curfew that students must be in their building by the established curfew time, and nobody can leave. So we really, we place a lot of emphasis on the wellness and safety of our students during the 5 weeks. As Michael had shared earlier, the same campus resources that degree program students can access, pre-college students have the opportunity to access. That includes the nature lab, the museum, the library, the studio and equipment, and the on-campus computer lab. So you really do get the opportunity to live like a RISD student and get the same access to the resources. So that was a lot. If there's any questions, please start putting them in the chat. But just to how to apply, going to precollege.risd.edu, you'll see both our advanced program online and the residential pre-college program listed there. There are those requirements to apply for the pre-college program. And then if you are looking to apply for a scholarship, there are additional pieces that you have to submit. And I will say the scholarship deadline is tomorrow, Wednesday, February 1st at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So if you are looking to get a scholarship application in, please do that as soon as possible. 5 p.m. tomorrow is the deadline. Our contact info is there. If we don't get to a question, or if something pops up after you digest all this information, please send us an email, precollege@risd.edu, or you can give us a call. And yeah, I think we probably should get to some questions. Is there anything we should be just answer live?
Yeah, actually, that was a perfect segue, Christina. Well, thank you so much for all that info. That was really, really great. But I do see that there are a number of questions in the Q&A that are just about, when students will be notified if they've applied. And there are some questions about what programs are still available. Ooh, sorry about that. Let me... So I don't know if you want to maybe speak to some of the just when students are notified and what programs might still be available.
Yeah, so we are actually actively sending out notifications this week. Some went out today, some will go out tomorrow. So if you've already applied, you should hear back within the next couple of days. And then if you're still applying, let's say you apply this coming week on Friday, we're expecting that the turnaround should be about 1 week from when you apply. At this time, the only majors that are available are ceramics, furniture design, glass, interior design, jewelry, photography, sculpture, and textile design. And I can actually go ahead and throw those into the chat so that everyone can see those. Those are the ones that we have open. Others are filled, but you can add yourself to the wait list.
Great. That was actually a follow-up question that I see here, is that if you've applied to a major that's full, does that mean you're not accepted, or what happens with your application at that point?
So if your first choice is filled, we will select your second major that you selected. If that is filled, you will be, you really would be open to the ones that are available. And we encourage students to consider majors that are very maybe different from what they've been focusing on. It will help to, broaden your learning, your education. It'll broaden your portfolio, and it could just be a really cool opportunity to try something new.
Great, thank you so much. So I do have another question. Actually, Christina, I also see here that somebody had asked to maybe go to the previous slide. Would you mind just doing that while we while we go ahead with the questions. There was a question earlier that wasn't necessarily distinguished between pre-college versus the undergraduate experience at RISD, but it's about sort of the what are the hours like? Will you be staying up late and working? And then later on, there's another question that says, in the pre-college 9 to 4 classes, are there any breaks in the day besides the 1 hour lunch break? So maybe we could start with pre-college, just what a traditional day looks like between breaks and the hours of time you might spend in the studio outside of that traditional that time frame, and then I'll go ahead and answer that for the undergraduate.
Yeah, so for pre-college, you are in studio at least 4 days per week, 9 to 4 p.m., sometimes later. I certainly this summer saw students getting out at 4:45, 5 o'clock, depending on what was happening that day. There is the 1 hour break for lunch. And then on the fifth day, it's a half day because you're doing your critical studies in art. So all students will have at least one afternoon or one afternoon or morning, without classes. But time management is one of the most mentioned things in our survey. Students, wish they either learned more time management or they were really challenged with their time management. Students can only work in studios until curfew, so it's really important that students are able to balance their time. You can then work in your lounge or your residence hall working area. Each res hall has a working area, and that you can stay in as long as you'd like. But we really discourage students from staying up late, pulling all-nighters, because it is just going to affect you being able to succeed the next day in class.
Great, thanks. And I can sort of go ahead and speak to the undergraduate experience, which I think the answer is going to be very similar. I will be totally transparent and say that your first year at RISD, Experimental and Foundation Studies, does have a reputation of being a significant amount of work. And a lot of that is related to the open-ended nature of not just art and design study, but especially the types of assignments that you could expect in experimental and foundation studies. I think this is really what distinguishes an art and design education, is that you spend so much time in these sort of unknowns, the visual research, the literary research. There might be 100 solutions to the same question, and your creative problem solving might evolve, and you might find a different approach, or you might go to critique and find that maybe what you're trying to communicate isn't communicating as effectively as you had hoped, and then you might try another approach. And so I think between just the assignments and then your own approach to making, it can be a very rigorous, time-intensive year. I have students that have told me they pull all-nighters. I have others that have said they never once pulled an all-nighter. So I think it's going to be all about time management and also your creative process. So, and then as you go on into your program, I would say that it's still a rigorous education, but I would say that it does not have the same reputation as the first year of study. But pre-college can certainly help you prepare for that type of environment and the pedagogy.
I'd love to address just a question about life as a commuter student. I've seen that come up, and I think it's important to recognize the fact that residential students and commuter students are welcome equally to this program. It's a fantastic opportunity to still continue to enjoy RISD's campus and to explore the many possibilities of what it's like to be here as a student. One thing to know is that you have the same benefits in regard to access to space that a residential student has. You can visit your friends in the dorm spaces and the residential halls. The only difference is that you'll just head home if before curfew. Other than that, you're invited to any sort of weekend events, any additional programming. So being a commuter student does not separate you in regard to being a pre-college student. Those are really one and the same. You're just not sleeping on campus.
Great, thank you, Sean. There's also a question about APO, if we just want to roll into that too, which is that, is it advisable to do session 1 and 2 together in the same semester? And then this is about an age where this potential student is 2 weeks younger than the first session cutoff age. What would you suggest that family do?
Yeah, so just Briefly in regard to eligibility, sort of depends on the date, the birth date of the student, whether or not they meet that eligibility within, I believe it's 3 months by the program start date. We can definitely look at that with the student. In regard to actually joining for both sessions, I would highly encourage it, though I would also say that APO, the Essential Fundamentals courses, do run year round. So during the spring and fall terms, we offer both the exploration of design and experiential drawing courses in 2 parts. So what that could mean is if you'd like to take this coming spring, if you'd like to take both parts of one of the Essential Fundamentals courses over 8 weeks, rather than in a sort of the intensive in that 4-week practice, that is an option. Once you've successfully completed that course, you'd be eligible to join during the 4 or 8 week sessions in the summer as part of our concentrations. So I certainly encourage students to take it at least within the year's time so that they can complete a certificate that's associated with it. And by completing that APO program certificate, you're bettering yourself in regard to your ability to create a level of work that meets your own standard that you're setting for yourself, but also that of which under the sort of the constraints or intensive of working online.
Great. Thank you, Sean. So I just want to note that we do have just roughly 2 minutes left. I'm not sure if the other panelists need to run. I think we can hold on for just a little bit longer, but I would say it's pretty safe at this point that we won't be able to get to all of the open questions. So I would just recommend just pausing where we are. We will share contact information in the chat, so you could feel free to reach out to us if there's any questions following this. I really want to just prioritize some of the continuing ed pre-college and APO questions here. And then I'll briefly later address the questions about undergraduate admission. But I do see that there are some folks here that haven't heard back from their application. I'm just curious if you have any advice of, should these folks sit tight? Where should they contact the office? Is there a process in place for those folks?
Yeah, so we are actively reviewing applications. If you've already applied and your application was complete, those should be going out in the next day or so. Our application specialists are reviewing the applications for their completeness. So as long as you have done everything and uploaded everything that you need, you should hear within the next few days. You can definitely email us at precollege@risd.edu if you have any concerns about your application.
Great, thank you so much. I do also see here a number of questions about does attending pre-college in any way help or harm your application if you apply as an undergraduate student? And so certainly welcome the continuing ed answer, and then I can add anything after that.
Yeah, I can certainly answer a bit of that question. Your involvement with any sort of pre-collegiate program, whether it be with RISD or otherwise, will certainly just help you experience something that is at an elevated level. When we approach these pre-collegiate opportunities and we build them out, we build them to be immersive and an intensive. And in many ways, that is going to help represent the kind of work that you're able to do. And so as part of an application, and I know that Mike can speak to this further, admission is going to see your ability to handle that kind of workload and intensity. So the associated work that you're going to do in APO is under those constraints of those 4 weeks, working both asynchronously, building out your sort of in-home studio space, while pre-college is working within that college space, working at RISD, experiencing what it's like to be a student. And both of those experiences are going to be pretty telling as to what those results were. And one thing is that if you come in and you're concerned about not having completed the major or not being a part of a major that you were hoping to take later on, your work, as I had mentioned further, is going to show that you're willing to spread beyond your comfort, out of your comfort zone, break free of, perhaps your anxiety around one thing or another, and it's going to show your flexibility to really step up in that regard. So in many ways, these opportunities and taking any sort of class with us or another institution is going to help you push your application based on your commitment to the program.
Yeah, absolutely. And from the undergraduate admission perspective, I would say that we're certainly, we know that you've attended. We'll see that in your application, and I think the advantage really goes to the applicant in that they understand the RISD pedagogy, they understand the experience, they have greater confidence in their work, and being able to describe that through their application. And so, I think a lot of that resonates with the committee. But it's also just really important to note that we have to be equitable when we're reviewing, and that not everyone's going to have the resources to be able to participate in a pre-college, and that's perfectly fine. So it's something that we see, and I think the work that comes out of RISD pre-college is really strong and resonates well. So, but the advantage really goes to you and your level of comfort in making and what you're ultimately curating for your portfolio. There are a number of questions about portfolios for undergraduate admission. I can just speak to some of that very briefly. And then Sean or Christina, if there's any continuing ed pre-college APO questions that you want to make sure we answer before we wrap up, please feel free to do so. So just in general, for undergraduate admission to RISD, we are a Common App school. So that's the application that you will use to apply. Your portfolio is given significant weight. That is submitted through Slide Room. Please note, we will no longer be requiring the RISD assignment, not this current cycle or going on in the future. We ask for 12 to 20 images of what you consider to be your best work. And we don't really show samples of work. We do that intentionally because our goal is not to encourage you to think a specific way or try to recreate work that's already been done. We want to see who you are uniquely as an artist and designer. And so it doesn't really serve anyone well if we show a lot of those examples. But what I can say is that generally there's a really nice harmony between creative thought, so that conceptual piece, and sort of that technical skill. We believe that there needs to be a base level of technical skill showcased through various media and in different approaches to making in order to communicate your concepts effectively. And so, for students who show, a breadth of work or some sign that they're willing to go out and take risks and try a new approach, even though they're really comfortable with one particular, medium, then those students tell us that those artists tell us that they'll do well in the open-ended nature of experimental and foundation studies, and tend to do very well in our process. It is perfectly fine if your work is specific to a major, to the major to which you are applying, even though we know you're not declaring that at the time of application. So it is nice to see that it's absolutely not required. And I don't recommend having your portfolio be exclusively specific to one major, although there are some exceptions. There are those that are applying to photography and will include exclusively photo in their portfolio. And that's one thing. But anyway, I hope that helps. And then I'll just turn it over to Sean and Christina, maybe one or two more questions, and then we will say farewell to everyone.
Sure. Yeah, I just want to address portfolios as it relates to pre-collegiate programs. There's no requirement to submit a portfolio. As Christina has mentioned in the chat and questions, and as I mentioned previously, we do welcome students of all skill levels, and it is competitive in the fact that we have many students who are applying to attend pre-college this summer. I have also listed my email and my information here. So if anyone's interested in discussing advanced program online further, which I started the presentation with, I'd be happy to jump on a Zoom call with you and your family, talk about options. There are also online options and in-person options for students 13 to 17 years old who are interested in just getting started with us, getting started in art and design, and are unsure whether or not they want to pursue one of our pre-collegiate opportunities. This will help you familiarize yourself with the Canvas learning management tool that we use, where our courses are built, get you some familiarity of what's it like to be in a Zoom class meeting. And then if you're to join us in Providence for a week in the summer, that's also an option as well. So there are many ways to stay involved with RISD continuing education prior to your involvement as an undergraduate student.
And yeah, I'll just wrap up with, if there's any questions about pre-college, anything we didn't get to, please email us precollege@risd.edu. We have application specialists that can respond and chat with you. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely. I just put my contact information in the chat as well. Please do not hesitate to reach out. Want to once again thank everyone so much for taking time out of your day, afternoon, night, wherever you are, to join us. We hope this was helpful. Again, this was recorded. We will go ahead and send out this recording to everyone who attended, and so you'll be able to reference that as well. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.